Hello and welcome to the Musical Instrument Investigator. Today we're on the website of Sunrise Auctions based in Japan. We're going to have a look at their latest musical instrument auction. Now usually Sunrise is quite a small auction and we often see the same things kind of repeated and not selling, but I have to say this is the largest Sunrise auction that I've seen since I started doing these videos. 90 lots, that's actually quite substantial, and I had a quick look before and there are definitely some new things here, so I'm really pleased to see that Sunrise are kind of bringing back an interesting auction again. Perhaps they were affected by COVID and I've been a bit harsh on them before, so glad to see that that's getting better. So this particular auction, as the normal Sunrise auctions are, they're kind of split in two. Like the first section is finishing on the 12th of October, and the second section down here, you can see 11 days, is on the 13th of October. I guess broadly speaking, the kind of lesser value stuff finishing first, and then the more expensive stuff towards the end, but it's not quite like that because I think most of the bows are in the first auction, but there's a general upwards trend, I would say. Yeah, so it's the 2nd of October today, so there's quite a way to go before this auction. I would say that from a value point of view, I think £1,000,000 is about 7,000 US dollars, so that might kind of give you a rough indication of what the value of some of these things are. Some of it's quite expensive, so it's worth doing a breakdown. As I said before, this is based in Japan, so you definitely need to have a look at the kind of shipping, export, import kind of restrictions on this auction if you are trying to buy something out of Japan, because that could be very costly indeed. But anyway, let's kind of get on with it and just see what they have. Some of the things I will definitely recognize from the previous auctions, because there are still a lot of repetitions, but there will definitely be some new stuff. So yeah, let's see what we have here. So we've got a load of auction catalogues. I think we've seen these before. It's 3,000 to 4,000 yen there, Christie's ones. This is Luteria and Arco and Napoli by Francesco Guarnini there, 4,000 to 5,000 yen. I think that's usually there. Here's the Italian violin makers by Carol Jelovec. That's usually here as well, 8,000 to 10,000 yen. Another one here, that's 8,000 to 12,000 yen. Luteria Italiana by Umberto Azzolina, that's usually here as well, 15,000 to 20,000 yen. Set of violin chin rest and tailpiece in rosewood, this is also usually here, 2,000 to 5,000 yen. Combi case for violin and viola, I think we've seen this before, that's 5,000 to 8,000 yen. Oh, someone's actually bidding on it, so that's good. Small quantity of Pernambuco wood, over 50 years old, 15,000 to 20,000 yen there, 15,000 bid. I think that we've seen this before. I am quite skeptical looking at the grain of this, that is actually suitable for making bows, but I could be wrong. Some more Pernambuco here, 15,000 to 20,000 yen the estimate, 15,000 yen bid. Once again, quite skeptical. This one 30,000 to 50,000 yen with a 30,000 yen bid. Some of this here, this looks a bit more believable, but the grain is kind of running out a bit to the side, so not 100% sure. This maybe is a bit more believable, but some of this wood I would question how good it is actually for bows. Here's some more Pernambuco. They're classing this B grade here, 50,000 to 80,000 yen, 50,000 bids, so I guess they understand themselves that, yeah, you can see now the grain starting to be a bit more kind of what we would look for there, so that's potentially a bit more usable. Some more B grade here, 50,000 to 80,000 yen. Well, at least there's bids on everything, so that's kind of good for the auction house. So a 3/4 violin labelled Leon Bernadelle. I think we've seen this before, but 10,000 to 15,000 yen is the estimate. We've already got bids on that, so far I think doing quite well. Sunrise auctions, so good to see. Modern Hungarian cello sold with a bow and gawa case, 350 to 450,000 yen there. So I guess that's kind of around $3,500 or so, depending what the bids kind of get to. It looks all fairly standard there. Nickel mounted viola bow there, 50 to 80,000 yen. And a nickel mounted French viola bow by Prosper Colas, Paris, 1900. It's got a Gartzman certificate there, 250 to 280,000 yen. Contemporary viola, J. Heidi, L'Ancienne Magini copy. So this is a Chinese made viola here, 70,000 to 100,000 yen on this. I think we've seen this one before, I do forget though. An old Wiener viola labelled Johann Christoph Liedorf in Vienna, so a Viennese instrument they're saying here. That's 1 million to 1.5 million yen there. So 405 length of back, so that's quite good for a modern kind of viola. So this is looking at, I guess, 7 to kind of 11 or so $1,000 potentially, depending on how the bids go. That I think is new. Some kind of fairly junky violin bows there, 10 to 15,000 yen. I think we've seen them before. Same again here, a whole load of child's bows, 10 to 15,000 yen. Nickel mounted violin bow stamped PC or sorry, I think we've skipped past there. Yeah, nickel mounted bow stamped PC, Brazilian wood, 15 to 20,000. I think we've seen this one before. Violin bows, one stamped PC, 20 to 30,000. Violin bow, it's got ivory, so it's CITES restrictions there, 20 to 30,000 yen. Silver mounted violin bow stamped tubs, 20 to 30,000 yen there. Nickel mounted and ebony mounted violin bow, 30 to 50,000 yen. Nickel mounted open frog violin bow stamped Peugeot, 30 to 50,000. They're looking for this. A silver and ebony mounted German violin bow by Johannes Paulus, 30 to 50,000 is the estimate. We've got bids of 30,000 there. Nickel mounted violin bow, 30 to 50,000. A nickel and ebony mounted violin bow, 50 to 80,000. Silver mounted violin bow stamped El Panormo, 80 to 100,000. German violin bow by Otto Derschmidt, 90 to 120,000 there. Silver mounted violin bow, 100 to 150,000 yen. We've got 100,000 bid so far. Silver and horn mounted violin bow by Heinz Dolling, got 100 to 150,000 yen there. Silver mounted violin bow by G.L. Panormo, Frog Later, stamped El Panormo. Certificate with from Gilles Chancerole, one of the kind of top French kind of experts there. 160 to 200,000 yen. It says possibly the head of the stick is repaired, and they're showing this. This does look a bit concerning. Nickel mounted French violin bow by Eugene Cugno Huri, Mirko, circa 1900. Certificate from Raffin, so I think that's good. Always good to see a Raffin certificate, 200 to 300,000 yen there. It's always good. A Mark Nakirkin violin bow by Albert Nürnberger here, 200 to 300,000 yen is the estimate. We've got 200,000 bid. Silver mounted French violin bow by Émile François Houchard, Miracle, 300 to 500 thousand is the estimate. I would personally like to see a certificate there from either Raffin or Pierre Guillaume if I was going to bid on a kind of a French bow in a Japanese auction, personally, but I'm sure that it is what they say it is. A golden tortoiseshell mounted violin by Richard Grunker. It's a very fine German maker. 300 to 500,000 yen is the estimate, but no bids so far. Nickel mounted French violin bow by Marc Lebert there, stamped HC Silvestre. It's got a Raffin certificate, so that's kind of what I would look for. 400 to 600,000 yen there. Now we're moving on to the section which is finishing the day afterwards. So this is finishing on the 13th of October. All the other previous lots were on the 12th. This is a new violin. I've not seen this in this auction. So it's an inlaid violin. Length of back is 358. This is a very, let's see if we can expand this a bit. This is a very kind of odd purfling there. It does kind of almost do wonder if this is added afterwards. There's lots of repairs here. Looks like it's been over varnished. It's a bit strange. Here's that kind of typical kind of castle-ish type inlay. There's definitely some interesting bits on that. 20 to 30,000 yen is the estimate. A bit of a strange one there. A French violin labelled Magini. It's got the long length of back there, 364. 30 to 50,000 yen. The back is quite nice. Not a fan of this particular model type. These French Magini copies are just a little bit odd to me. A violin labelled Pietro Antonio Belloni, Milano, 1694. Length of back 364. That's pretty large. 30 to 50,000 yen is the estimate. So I'm not quite sure exactly what that is. Violin labelled Joseph Bowman, 30 to 50,000 yen. Interesting scroll there. Once again, I don't think this is anything too interesting. Contemporary Japanese violin by Yamaha, 30 to 50,000 is the estimate. We've got 30,000 bids so far. I'm sure some of these Japanese Yamaha violins are fairly good for students. A violin, that's good. Inside says Nicholas Ain. It just looks like a kind of typical, probably German violin. 30 to 50,000 yen is the estimate. A modern Japanese violin by Minazawa Minezo, 1971, with case. I can't remember if we've seen some of these before or not, but I think there are a few in this auction. This is a really nice back, actually. Definitely a nice back. I think that this is quite an interesting violin. 40 to 60,000 yen. Kind of curious scroll there. Yeah, I think this is obviously needs a bit of repair there, but it's just an interesting violin to me, because I think I've said previously on these auctions that I do like to see instruments from other countries, and it's good to see Japanese violins for sale in a Japanese auction, so glad to see that. A violin labelled Francesco Guarnini. This is a long-term one which doesn't seem to sell. I can't quite remember if the price keeps on going down or not. That's one thing I've not really remembered, but looks like a typical kind of German tradey violin. 50 to 70,000 yen there. A French inlaid violin with Old Man's Head labelled Magini. Another super long one. It's just another horrible French Magini thing, although I have to say that the detail on the back here, this is actually a lot nicer than most, but I'm really not a fan of these violins. 50 to 80,000 though. I think this is not kind of outrageous. It looks like a well-made instrument. Modern European violin, interesting. 50 to 80,000 euros is the, sorry, yen. I've probably said euros quite a lot instead of yen in this auction, so I apologise. All the prices are in yen. Difficult to kind of 100% know what's going on with this one. Could have potential, I think. A modern European violin, circa 1900. So let's see, 50 to 80,000 yen there. Once again, kind of difficult to know exactly what's going on there. French violin, labelled Magini. It seems like they've got every single one of these French Maginis that they could find. That's unfortunate. 50 to 80,000 yen. German violin here. 50 to 80,000 yen. It's quite a strong back on that one. So slightly interesting, heavily varnished on flames. French violin, circa 1880, 50 to 80,000 yen there. A violin, 50 to 80,000. Looks like someone's probably made a repair here if the back's come across and they've just put a strip in. I could be wrong, that maybe that is how it was originally, but 50 to 80,000. This is one of the slightly more interesting than some of the other instruments that we've seen, but still nothing too outrageous. German violin labelled Guarnini, 50 to 80. Don't think there's anything too exciting from this one. German violin, 50 to 80,000. Got 50,000 yen bid. This looks heavily over varnished and a bit horrible. Violin labelled Carl Uschen, Winter 3rd, 1951. This is a long running instrument as well, that's been on here for quite a while. 80 to 100,000 yen there. Modern Japanese violin by Minazawa Minezo, 1971, with case, 80 to 100,000 yen. So this is the same maker as one of the violins we've seen before. You can see in the corner work that this is at least by the same kind of workshop, so I have no reason to doubt that this is not by the same maker. You can see in the work of the scroll, it all looks very similar. Interesting work, I think, for 356. So for me, the most interesting things in this auction so far. German violin labelled Paganini. I'm not sure if we've seen this before. 100 to 150,000 yen. A contemporary German violin labelled Ferdinand Knupfer, Mark Nukirkin, 1994. This, I think, is a new one. I don't recall seeing this. 80 to 100,000 yen there. Looks fairly well made instrument. Mittenwald violin, Neuner School, circa 1890. 80 to 100,000 yen. A bit of a funky scroll there. Looks like they got the apprentice to make that scroll. Modern European violin labelled Azola Aloysius, 1950. 100 to 150,000 yen. I'm not really seeing anything so far. I think in general the pictures on this auction are a bit kind of saturated in colour wise. Contemporary violin labelled Paolo Malaguti, Bologna, 1989. 100 to 150,000 yen. We've got, wow, 210,000 yen bid on that, so some serious interest on this for some reason. Interesting. Modern English violin made for Francis Maldo Shannon by his father Antonio, 1925. Okay. Oh wow, that's a really nice back actually. That's a very, very nice kind of edge work. It's a nice instrument actually. I have to say, let's look back at the front actually. Interesting workmanship there. That's an interesting violin. Yep, 100 to 150,000 yen. That's curious. Definitely worth investigating further. Modern violin labelled JB Viome. I think we've seen this one before. 120 to 150,000. German violin Neuner School Mittenwald, circa 1890. Similar to the one that we saw before, but the scroll is a bit better. 120 to 150,000 yen. European violin, circa 1900, labelled Postachini. I think we've seen this before. This is quite uninspiring. 130 to 180,000 yen. German violin, labelled JB Viome. 130 to 180,000 yen. We've seen this one before as well. Definitely not very nice. Violin labelled Bernadelle, 150 to 200,000 yen. Yeah, it's fairly normal. Modern Czech violin by Francesco Guarnini, Boleslav, 1928. It's an interesting back on this one as well. Quite a nice kind of bird's eye on that. It looks interesting enough. 150 to 200,000 yen. Violin labelled Lorenzo Ventapane, Fabricante di Strumenti da Corda, Abita Calata, Borgio di Loreto. Sold with insurance appraisal there. We've seen this many times, this instrument. It's always here. I actually quite like it. I have no idea what it actually is, but I just like the style of it, the cut of the F holes. I think it's an interesting looking instrument. The scroll is pretty nuts. Yeah, I have no idea what this is, but I think it's interesting looking violin. So they're looking around 200,000 yen, so it's not super outrageous kind of price there, but still fair whack. Modern French violin labelled G. Apparoute, 1920. It's 200 to 300,000 yen there. Modern Italian violin, workshop of Mario Garda, 1976. 2 to 300,000 there is the estimate. We've got 240 bid already. Modern French violin, Clodo School. I think that this is something we might have seen before. 300 to 400,000 there. So an old German violin labelled Ballestieri. So 300 to 500,000 yen. Interesting kind of scroll. So I mean, it looks like an 18th century German violin of some kind. So a few repairs and things like that. An old German violin labelled Ficker, like very similar again. 3 to 500,000 again, very similar another kind of probably 18th century German violin. Modern Japanese violin by Minazawa Minezo, circa 1950, with case, 350 to 450,000. Interesting why this one is kind of so much more than some of the other ones. I guess it's this one is ready to play, as the other ones needed a bit of repair. I suppose this one's a bit more refined perhaps, but you can see similar stylings there. A modern violin labelled Bernadelle, 400 to 500,000 yen. I think we've seen this before. Nice scroll, nice workmanship. Contemporary violin by Takatoshi Hashimoto, Cremona, 1991, 400 to 600,000 yen. Looks like a nice tidy instrument, maybe not super exciting to look at, but looks tidy. A good modern Japanese violin by Soroko Murata, Tokyo, 1966, sold with a bow stamped taut. This does look like quite a nice instrument, nice scroll work. I think we've seen this one before, 500 to 700,000 yen there. Contemporary Italian violin by Patrick Soule, Padova, 1998, 500 to 800,000 yen, and we've got 550 bid already. Modern English violin labelled Paul Bailey, 600 to 800,000. I think we have seen this before. Modern Italian violin, Antianazzi school, labelled Pietro Borghi. We've seen this one before as well. So this is 700,000 to $1 million yen. So the top end, that's about $7,000. Contemporary Italian violin by Marco Imper Piccinotti, San Paolo, 1 million to 1.3 million yen, with a certificate of the maker. I think we've seen that before as well. Modern Italian violin by Mario Garda, Mantova, the Ansaldo Poggi model. I think we've seen this before as well, 1.2 to 1.5 million yen there. An old German violin, School of Joseph Klotz, Mittenwald, 1.5 to 1.8 million there. I don't really see anything super exciting about this particular one. Modern violin, Ventapane School. It's got a certificate from Giorgio Grisales. We've seen this one quite often as well. 1.5 to 2 million yen. Once again, I'm not really seeing too much in that. An old violin ascribed to David Tekla. This is one which is a long-standing one as well. 2.5 to 3 million yen here. Let's have a look at this a bit closely. I mean, an interesting violin, but I think they need some better pictures that are a bit clearer on this. Lots of documents here, but that is quite a substantial amount of money there. This is getting towards, you know, over 20,000 US dollars, and it's, you know, it doesn't have any hard certification. It's all very speculative. Then I think this is the last one here. Yeah, it's an Italian violin ascribed to Vincenzo Sannino, Napoli, 1900. Certificate from San Domenico Stringed Instruments. 2.9 to, is it 3 million yen there? This picture's taking a bit of time to load up. To 3.5 million yen. Interesting scroll. I mean, an interesting looking instrument, but this is quite a lot. This is going to be over, kind of getting on to, I suppose, 23-ish thousand US dollars. That's quite a lot to pay for something that's just described to. So that's a bit of a difficult one. But anyway, that's the end of the Sunrise auctions. Actually, I have to say it was quite quite an enjoyable auction. I'm glad to see more lots in these Sunrise auctions. Some really interesting Japanese violins, good to see that. A few other curious ones, that's kind of potentially English violin there, and a few other things. So yeah, definitely I think an auction that's worth checking out. So I'll put a link in the description as always. Check it out if you've got time, and thanks a lot for watching. Take care. Bye. Many thanks for tuning in to the Musical Instrument Investigator. I hope that you enjoyed the video. If you did, then please like, subscribe and turn on notifications, and watch out for the next video coming soon.